Hey adventurers, so today is going to be another book review. This is going to be for The Ember Blade by Chris Whitting. So yeah, this is epic fantasy, high fantasy. It's pretty, even traditional fantasy to some degree, dark fantasy. There's definitely a quest element and a coming of age element to it. It's very much, when you think of epic fantasy, this is kind of what you think of. A lot of people have compared it to Lord of the Rings. A lot of people have said that it's kind of like a Lord of the Rings imitation. I have some thoughts on that I'll get into as we go through this review. Before I do that though, I hope my audio works on this one because I've been having audio problems. My microphone, I have it. The mic works great. Just something about the transfer from the mic to my computer recording software is not transferring cleanly. It's not working like it's supposed to. So hopefully that doesn't happen with this video and I can just do this review and it works perfectly. And yeah, so anyways, The Ember Blade is the first book in the Darkwater Legacy series by Chris Whitting. Many people describe this book as a modern version of the Lord of the Rings, and in many ways that is a good description. But it also gives the wrong perception. This is not the Lord of the Rings. This is a completely different story than the Lord of the Rings, even though there are some aspects that are reminiscent of that book. But if you are not looking for those similarities, it will feel more akin to traditional fantasy rather than Lord of the Rings itself. None of that is a bad thing. I actually feel like because of those similarities, it becomes something fresh in this modern fantasy era where everything is trying to be not Tolkien, not Lord of the Rings. Something that takes a step back and goes towards Lord of the Rings a little bit feels kind of nice. Before I get into the rest of this review, I'd just quickly like to say welcome to an Erudite adventure. I'm T. If you're liking what you're seeing from us, please like, comment, and subscribe. I haven't really described much of what this book is about, so I'll briefly do that before getting into my own experiences with the book. I feel like that's kind of a beneficial and helpful aspect of reviews, is when there's a little bit of what is the book about as well. And so I'm going to try and do that and be better about that in future reviews as well. It starts off with a people under an oppressive foreign regime, and our main character and his father seemingly going along with that regime, until they can't. It then becomes a prison break story and subsequently a heist story. There's a quest element, there's a coming of age element, there is a found family and motley crew element, definitely a magical MacGuffin artifact, lost civilization, and a threat of being chased. So there's a lot of these things that are it's kind of a genre mashup in a lot of ways, but also a lot of these things that are common that you would find in Lord of the Rings as well. Failure dooms the world, and though familiar feeling in many ways, it is done with our modern sensibilities for fantasy storytelling, and so it definitely comes at the story that it's trying to tell from a different direction than Tolkien did. When I started out this book, I really was unsure if I would like it. Everyone who'd read it told me I would, but the opening didn't sell me. It took a fair bit of time for me to switch from I'll keep going to oh, this is cool, this is awesome. But every time I paused the audiobook, I wanted to come back, and that's a good measurement for me, a good post what I can't think of what I'm looking for, but that's a good way to measure if I am enjoying a book or not, is when I pause the audiobook for whatever reason, whether it's because I have to take a break or I have to do something else or I have to talk to somebody or whatever it might be. I want to come back and press play again and keep listening. And I found myself wanting to come back and play the audiobook again. And so that's a great sign. That's a great place for me to be at with a story like this. So clearly it was working. Whatever it was doing was working. And eventually the atmosphere of the story drew me in to the point where I had to finish. The more I read, the more I realize how important atmosphere is for me as a reader, and I've talked about this several times, and I'm sure it'll continue to be brought up in more and more videos as I continue making them. But atmosphere is a very important aspect of a story that makes me enjoy books a whole lot more when it's included. Stories can be great and greatly enjoyed without it, but I love it so much more when there is a great atmosphere, and I truly feel like Whitting does an excellent job with the atmosphere of this book. I have such a beautiful, clear mental images of moments from the story. I remember those moments and how they affected the story and my investment more than the major story beats often. There's times where where an image from that's the atmosphere that's tied together with the atmosphere. Of course, it's a story moment as well, but I can create this mental image of this scene. There's one in particular that I'm thinking of from this book that it's clear as day in my mind, and clearer often than I don't even remember the characters' names at this point. I like that part doesn't isn't important to me. I remember the story as a whole. I remember the overarching story, but this one image is so burned into my mind because of the atmosphere that Wooding was able to insert into that moment, that I remember that clearer than a lot of the other aspects of the book. But that does help me. That reminds me of the experience with the book, and I do appreciate that a lot. And it's especially having to write reviews that are months from the time that I read the book. It's very beneficial to have those things that can pull me back to when I was reading. Wooding does a great job at tailoring his style for the location, moment, and aspect that is necessary. This is something I really noticed with Tolkien, and again, back to the Tolkien comparisons, but that's just because everything goes back to Tolkien for me. And I haven't really nearly seen it as much with any other author, but I feel like Wooding succeeds fairly well in this. The times that need to feel like horror, feel like horror. The times that are calm, beauty is beauty, action is action, etc. The writing lends itself to that. This is an aspect of atmosphere that people often miss. I don't need descriptions for the sake of knowing every detail of every piece of clothing. That doesn't help me. That isn't necessary to my immersion in this world. I need to see how our characters react and respond to the things that are going on, to the things that they're seeing, to the way that they're reacting, or to the things around them that they're interacting with. And that is what draws me into the atmosphere so much more than describing how thick the air was because of the, going in depth about the reasons, this, that, and the other, all these details, and getting into the minutia of what's going on. No, show me those things through the reactions of the characters and how they're dealing with them. That's what I tend to like. I feel like I've kind of said a whole lot of nothing in this review, and I don't want it to seem like that is reflective of this book. But it was such a pleasant experience with this book, even though it does not attain to the perfection that is Lord of the Rings, or as close to perfect as is humanly possible. But nonetheless, I loved this book. It fit my tastes very well, extremely well. I don't often give books that I'm reminded of in like comparison books or anything in my reviews. I generally don't do that. Sometimes I talk about Lord of the Rings in comparison and stuff like that, and I've done that a lot here. But there were some very clear ones that came to mind as I was reading this book. Some of them I think would even be more strong. I compare them more strongly to these books rather than to Lord of the Rings itself. Dawn of Wonder by Jonathan Renshaw. I've talked about that book a lot on this channel. Legends of the First Empire, especially Book 2, Age of Swords, I felt there was a lot of similarities with that one, and the Ember Blade. I thought I saw a lot of similarities there. And then A Natural History of Dragons is another one that actually comes to mind, but they're all for different reasons. They all tie into this story that's being told, but for different reasons. And I kind of really like that. I think that's really cool that I can find these comparisons with these other books, these other fantasy books. I am not the biggest fan of the Legends of the First Empire series. I really liked book 5, but I haven't loved any of the other books up to that point. I haven't read book 6 at the time of filming this yet. So it's just interesting for that to be the case, that I still see and I like seeing the comparisons to book 2 of Legends of the First Empire with that, but also Dawn of Wonder is another good one, like I already mentioned. It's interesting in the different ways that I see those comparisons, the different aspects that I see myself comparing to those books. Overall, I had a really good time with the book. It isn't perfect, and I do feel like the ending is a little bit weaker than I would like, but it's not a bad ending by any means. And in this instance, the ending is not what made the book great to me. So because of that, oftentimes, I guess I've talked about this before, but endings are very important to me. I really like endings. I really like when we have falling action, when we have a chance to see the new normal. If you're in book 1 of a series, it's less necessary, but I do like seeing that. But that's part of the ending. That's not the whole ending. A satisfying ending can do a lot for a book, but a good ending is not a excellently crafted ending is not required for me to enjoy a book as a whole. And this one, though a good ending, fairly good, I do feel like it was weaker than the rest of the book. But in spite of that, it doesn't take my enjoyment of the book down at all, because I just loved the experience that I had reading the book. And so that's very cool for me to see. I'm very glad that was the case with this one. Overall, I do recommend it. I don't know that every single person is going to read it. I don't know that it's one that every single person needs to read. It's not like a must read of the genre or anything like that, in my opinion, but I did enjoy it greatly. I had a very good time with it, and I do plan to read book 2, which is The Shadow Casket, at some point fairly soon here. I don't know when I'll get to it. But anyways, that is my review of The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and our social media is linked in the description down below. We will see you guys again soon. Stay well.